no matter what a defense does, there's space on the field that's being voided. And this offense is all about exploit the space that is available to us. And that could be run, pass, lateral, intermediate, deep, doesn't matter, right? You're working all layers of the field.
Today's episode of the Left Hash Call, our guest is the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach at Georgetown College. Before this new chapter, he spent time shaping offenses at both the University of St. Thomas and in Mount St. Joe, where he and his units lit up the scoreboard and rewrote record books. Welcome to the show, Coach Caleb Corrill. How are you doing today, man? It's good to see you.
Yeah, super excited to be on here. Just talking off air of how we kind of cross paths, and I've been following the show. Really liked a couple episodes that I've been able to check out, and I know a couple guests that are coming up that you're releasing right now are some big time dudes. So honored to be on here with you.
Yeah, we were just kind of chatting a little bit. We met at the UW River Falls Mega Camp that had been last summer, and just fun kind of getting to know you, hearing your story a little bit, and then obviously we're crossing paths again, and it's been really fun learning your story and hearing about your journey. And you're at a new stop here for the first time, right? This is a new waters for you, and I kind of want to hear a little bit about how this first initial spring ball was for you at Georgetown, and then we'll kind of get into. I really just want to learn more about you and your journey. But how was this first spring for you?
Yeah, it was really unique. It was something that I don't think I anticipated. This is the first time teaching this system that we're operating to a new group of kids and even more so to coaches. But it was a really rewarding one because I think that when you have a product that you believe in, so much, and you did it at a certain place for 7 years, I think a lot of the nuance to it gets understood by the people that are around you in the best possible way. And here, what I really learned about myself is making sure that I'm defining specific details and explaining the why behind scenarios, downloading the way that I think and why we are going to go about different elements of this process to, like I said, not only the players but to the assistant coaches. This place is awesome because they have a desire to win. They've won multiple national championships. They didn't need me to come in and save them. But working for Coach Perrin, it was all about, hey, how can we continue to enhance the program? The program had the number 3 defense in the country last year. So not only are we implementing a new system, but we got to what I call stress test the system, I believe in really, really, really wholeheartedly against one of the best defenses in the entire country. So that was a really unique experience. And obviously there's highs and lows and days where you're more confident than others, but ultimately it's a great group of kids. It's a program that truly values winning. It values people, and I'm really excited to be here and take on this challenge.
When it comes to implementing a new system and a new group, it's obviously a learning curve for both of you and the players as well.
Yeah.
When it comes to calling an offense your way, whatever that is there a certain level of crossing over some old terminology, or is it really kind of trying to adopt this school's terminology, or kind of how do you balance that when you're going into a new place?
Yeah, I know. There's multiple ways to do it, and and ironically, in the last 14, 15 months, I've seen it done both ways. Where one was take someone's already established terminology and apply it, and there's obviously value in that. I know Coach Saban did that when he started on the run of having just some of the most elite play callers in the world doing it. They had to carry over the Alabama terminology. It was actually a question I asked in the interview process. And the way that we're doing it here is it was Coach Perrin, the head coach I work for, said, call it what you want it, the way you want it, exactly how you see it. And for me in this particular stop, I believe that was really important, simply because I do think that there are some things that we do that are unique and different. And I wanted in year one, if we were going to go down, I wanted to go down on it's on me. I wanted to take full ownership of it. I think that as we continue to go, this is a very adaptive system. So I think we have adapted some terminology that made sense for our kids. Hey, we called this the same thing last year. Perfect. I don't have a better term than that. Let's call it that. But in this particular case, I actually asked that in the interview deal, and really wanted to. I wanted to carry over what we had done at Mount St. Joe and really see it at another level and at another institution. So I know there's a lot of ways to do it. I obviously feel most comfortable calling it the way that I have before. But each place and circumstance is probably going to offer its own unique challenges and circumstances for doing it the way that the head coach sees it.
Yeah, and we'll get into we'll really dive into some offensive identity here in a minute, but I want to kind of go through your journey a little bit. And I think it's a unique one. You coached for your dad at Batvia, right? And then, you went to Mount St. Joe, then St. Thomas, and now at Georgetown. I was kind of wondering if you would just kind of walk through how those different stops really, guided your journey and kind of what some of the common threads, that
Yeah.
you've seen.
Yeah, obviously, I basically grew up on the sideline. In my early years, my dad was, always a coach. And I remember one time, we were supposed to go to the pool on a summer day. And, every kid, you want to go to the pool and swim around and whatnot. And I remember I threw a fit to my mom because she wouldn't let me go 2-a-days. Like, I'm going to 2-a-days and it's going to be too hot and all this. Is like, no, I want to go to practice. And so that was always a huge piece of, just my DNA, if you will, of I always had it, I always wanted to be around the game. I thought my dad's team was the Cincinnati Bengals. And so that's always carried a piece. And I think it's definitely a key factor of why I've ended up in this profession, and learn the game, if you will, like what it was all about and the ins and outs from him. But he gave me some really key advice because it was kind of my goal to carry on what he was doing, and become the head coach where he was the head coach. And I thought, I would do it for 25, 30 years. And, they'd make a statue of he and I at the end and all this type of stuff. And right as I was kind of transitioning into that as 24, 25, he told me, you need to go try something else. And I kind of was offended by that advice at the time. But really what he was saying is like, go test, this love of the game and see. And he didn't necessarily say you got to do it at the college level, but he's like, you need to go see it done somewhere else, right? You grew up in a small town and there's a lot of positives and but also challenges with that. And, that advice was what kind of propelled me to getting a shot. I took a job that paid $0 at Mount St. Joe to be assistant to the quarterbacks and learned from some other really good coaches. And, I definitely credit my dad for the love of the game that has been developed and, just seeing how he brought that town together like that like game Friday night games. I mean, this is a small town that is not a powerhouse and people cared about football. And that was always kind of my driving factor is when he did it, people loved coming to the games. It was a community event, and that's what has always stuck with me. So at each of these stops, what's driven me to decide to, go to those spots is does the institution and the community truly care about football, and ultimately do we have a chance to win and win big? Like that's a lot. There's a lot of other decisions that go into this, especially the older you get and you have a family. But at the end of the day, I want to go somewhere where we can win, and that looks a lot of different ways. But I think each of the three stops represented that in their own way. That we had a true potential and almost an expectation to win. And that's kind of always been embedded in me. And it was just seeing, my dad's teams be successful and go to the playoffs for the first time in school history and, get people excited in the product that they were putting out.
I think that's a really, powerful thing to have your dad tell you to go kind of reinvent yourself a little bit. Make sure you actually love this thing because you can get yourself into a program early that you love and that you love the staff, you love the program, you love the culture, you've known it forever. But it's one of those things. Do you really love coaching? Do you really love football, or do you love what you've been around? Are you comfortable with it? And I
Yep.
think that's really kind of a unique perspective. Not a lot of people would get that advice, and for you to now, be through, a couple different stops now, hey, like this is what I want to do, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, I mean, and I tell kids that we're recruiting now this all the time, like you won't understand, the parents or the guidance usually when you're at that younger age and you think you've got things figured out. But I mean, I think about it, all the time because if he didn't present that to me, it was a comfort thing. I loved the place, loved where I grew up and whatnot. But he honestly, I think the way he phrased it was, you love football too much to simply stay here. And we did test it. We tested the theory, and obviously there's a lot of unique challenges in coaching small college football. But I mean, I don't know what the heck else I would do if I wasn't doing this. So I think I found the right path, and honestly, it was the shot in the arm I needed to go try some things, and even growing up in Cincinnati and leaving for Minnesota, which people in Ohio don't even know that state exists. People thought I was crazy, and I tell people all the time, like, you know, St. Thomas, great program and all that, but honestly, I wanted to do something that I felt a lot of other peers either didn't take the chance to do or didn't have the opportunity to do, and go recreate, go live somewhere else, go live in a completely different culture. And again, that was extremely terrifying as a dad and a husband and a coach who's coming off all that success. But it was an incredible experience because now we know it's like, hey, there's life outside of the bubble of Cincinnati, which is my favorite town on earth. But it's the same kind of thing, and I don't think that I don't think that was part of my nature before getting into this journey.
Let me make sure I get this right. You played both quarterback and defensive back, right?
Yep.
Both very different, very
Mhm.
demanding, but both very, if one of them, like we talked about earlier, if there's one position that's the hardest in football, the other is right up there with it.
Yep.
I think both demand different levels of physicality, both demand different levels of IQ. How did playing both shape your football mind? Because no matter how you shape it, your playing days ultimately affect how you are as a football mind. How did that really affect who you are now?
Yeah, when I was reading this, I thought that was a great question. And honestly, I think as a player, I always wanted to be in a position where I could impact the game. And I was, relatively talented for, small level high school football. But I think I always carried a cerebral nature about it. And honestly, when you grow up in a small, smaller high school setting, that was what I always knew was to play both sides. So it wasn't, and it wasn't like today where, you go see a quarterback trainer and you're training all summer with someone that's really
Right.
qualified and really teaching you high level nuance. I mean, we went to camps and stuff like that, but it's not anything like it is today. But honestly, I think, it's just exposure to the game. I mean, 10 years ago, I was a high school JV defensive backs coach, and like I didn't think anything different. Like I think I always was an offensive minded individual, but I mean, I was on coaching on the defensive side and cared about that and detailed and crafted those practice plans and game plans just like I do now on the offensive side. So some of it was by nature, but I think probably, my dad just, exposing us to the game. Like he never thought of me or consider me like, oh, you're the quarterback or, you're a running back or you're a safety or a DB. Is like, you're a football player. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's probably the ultimate gift that gave me was there's a lot of different ways to impact the game. You can learn something from every, all different spots on the field, and it never was presented to me or placed upon me that you are this position or you're a football player. And if you want to be a good football player, you impact the game where you're put. So learning how to play different roles and different situations, I think all those things probably played into the, kind of to what I've been developed into today.
Now, when you're coaching quarterbacks now, right? Do you? I'm assuming you probably don't spend a lot of time on mechanics well, there's never time to, right? I was a college quarterback, same thing. Didn't have a lot of time to spend on that. Um, what kind of approach do you take when you're coaching quarterbacks to allow them to play not only fast but process things at the same level? Coaching quarterbacks, you can overcomplicate that in a hurry. I've been around that, and I've also been on the other side of it. How do you manage that and getting guys to play fast?
Yeah, so I actually asked my former quarterback from Mount St. Joe this question, knowing, reading the pre-show, notes, if you will, and then asked our current quarterback, and just to make sure that I wasn't, saying something that sounded cute but wasn't realistic. And I think a lot of what I do is what you just said. I'm not a technical guru. I mean, I think there's a lot of guys in the summer that can do that. Um, I, I, I like it. A lot of people ask about that all the time. I think you get with the right guy that's in it for the right reason, like you're going to learn a lot. To me, it's especially the way that we want to play quarterback here. It's a true awareness and understanding of the full picture. Detailing not only what we're going to do, but more importantly, how and why we're doing it. So understanding that they're an extension of the play caller, really painting a true, vivid vision of the full picture of, okay, this is what we're trying to do. This is how we're trying to space the field. Here are the different defensive reactions that you could possibly get, preparing them for those scenarios, and then then it's driving confidence through the delivery of how we're instructing, but also the reps that are coming. I mean, I coach quarterbacks extremely. I'm very critical of quarterbacks because I believe our system is a quarterback-driven system. But I tell them that the critical nature is I want to put quarterbacks in stressful positions in a practice so that in a game they can go play make. They can be the point guard. They can be the distributor. I want to see how they can react to different scenarios. So I think a lot of it is, there's this intangible piece that we're trying to deliver of, we need competitive nature. We need a true understanding of all 11 pieces on the offensive side, but also a high level understanding of what a defense can present to us. But then coaching them that we want you to take risks. In this offensive system, we want you to take risks. We want you to challenge defenses all the time. Like, we're not going to play standardized football where a run is a run and a pass is a pass, a vertical is a vertical. We're going to have layers to our concepts. And at the end of the day, through that type of instruction on Saturdays, I want them to play. I want my feedback to them on Saturdays just to be give and take. Hey, do you like what we're seeing? Hey, I'm seeing this. I'm thinking I'm going to go to this. But I tell them all the time, if you know what you want, call it. Right? In this system, if you know what you want, call the play. Right? And I don't know that a lot of people give, younger kids that type of freedom. But to me, that's kind of the, they're always going to be coached. They're always going to be detailed. Their play will never, I always tell them, good is the enemy of great's the enemy of elite. Like, that's just how I look at things. And average to me is just boring. Right? So how do we continuously press the envelope, push the limits of what's possible, and allow them to find themselves within the system, find out what they do and how they see the game and how they process the way they play, and then apply it to the system, because the system is extremely adaptable. It is not a rigid system. And that individual can then take full ownership of it, understand the expectation, but then deliver on how they see the game. And so that's a lot of what I do. But you're exactly right. It's less technical and it's more awareness of their surroundings and how their presence impacts other people on a down to down, on a day to day, and in a week to week basis.
I'm curious how your offense shifts a little bit between who's the guy pulling the trigger. I think a lot of coaches that do it really well are ones that whichever guy in particular system gives us the best chance to win, that's the one we're going to go with. So, for example, you got a guy that's an elite runner. You do a lot more, read zone, probably do a lot more quarterback runs. And then you might have a guy that's just got a rocket on him, processes really well. Is that kind of the way that you take on things? Is I'm going to mold my system around our best guy, or is it, I have these concepts, I'm going to run the concepts. Whoever runs those concepts best is the one that's going to play.
Yeah, no, it's both. So my first quarterback at Mount St. Joe, he's 5'9", 150, absolute, extreme accuracy, touch, precision. I call him a savant with how he saw the game. And we played that style. We were a very air raid, empty, spread out 10 personnel team. Then we take on a 6 foot, 220-pound kid that can absolutely run the football. He would crush it in Coach Matheson's system like he was a different beast. And we played to that style. We evolved into that. Here we have a very experienced, smart, gifted player that has really, been that kind of distributor for had a lot of experience and talented pieces around them that plays in a completely different style. I don't mind the style that a player plays with. We're going to run. The concepts, especially now, will be the concepts, but they're always going to be applied to the skill set of the person that can give us the best ability to win the game. And ultimately, what I tell them is, as long as we distribute the football appropriately, where the ball needs to be distributed, that guy can play for us. The ball needs to move forward. First downs equal touchdowns, right? We need to be aggressive when the defense dictates. We need to be aggressive. We need to be comfortable throwing 6-yard throws over and over and over when a defense dictates that. And I kind of boil that down into what's your playmaking style, right? If you have a Josh Allen, right, and he can run, well, let's run him. That's awesome. That's a great skill to have, and it gives you a numbers advantage. If you have a pure passer, Joe Burrow type of guy, like, okay, let's pass the football. Like, let's set it up. Let's use the pass to set up the run, and let's use that gift to our ability. So I kind of I think it's probably from coaching lower levels of college football where, if you say, I want 6'4", 220, he can run, he can throw. Okay, well, he's going to Ohio State. I mean, that's just what's happening, right? So
Right.
I think some of it, I pride myself in that, but play style doesn't affect the way that we're going to go about it. I want them to be really proficient in their play style. If you're a good passer, okay, then you need to be hyper accurate. You need to be able to process and read defenses and get yourself out of jams within the pocket. If you're a runner, you need to be able to balance it with keeping defenses honest. You need to be able to move the chains for us behind the pads. You need to be able to learn how to protect your body. So I love it that we've had such a unique array of skill sets. But ultimately, if they can effectively and efficiently move the football forward, which is simplified, that's what we're looking for, right? They can lead others. They can demand as much of themselves as anyone else, and they're extremely coachable in the sense that I'm never going to stop detailing their game. They can be an effective quarterback in this system. And I think the system's pretty friendly to quarterbacks just because there are so many different ways that you can apply the information and not just, hey, the play has to be run just like this. This is there's an artistic element to this. I call it interpretive art in this offensive system where here's the play, here's the concept, right? This is how defenses are going to react to it. Okay, now let's apply it to that skill set. And that also kind of goes into the skill players you're using where it's go apply your own creativity to it. And now it's going to give us this whole other perception that people, they can't defend that. Like they can defend the drawing, but our plays aren't drawings. Like they're just not. They're just a guide to the ultimate, to the ultimate destination we're trying to arrive at.
God, I love that. That's I love that way of thinking. That's like the picturesque way I think that things should be done. Can't remember if I saw. I think it was either Greg Olson or Travis Kelce. I think they were having a thing where, they were drawing a basic or a dig, and he's like, "I'm never gonna run it like that, where it's straight 10 yards cut, square cut in. Like it's never gonna look like that. It's gonna be me like." Running 15 yards to get to whatever the case is. I think it's like never, being that way. And I love, it sounds like you're describing a point guard. You know what I mean? Like, I think no matter how you are a point guard, whether you're a 3-point shooter, whether you're, a scorer, whether you're just, you assist, you got to be able to distribute the ball. And I think that's like the best thing you can do as a quarterback is distribute.
So like in our system, and I think you hit it on the head, like we don't call digs in this system, right? Because you draw that on the board, and what you're going to get is you're going to get the kid A, like regardless of the defensive presence, they're going to run a straight line and they're going to break in. They're going to run across the field. And what I saw early in my career where, yeah, everybody runs a dig and everybody runs a slant, right? Okay, well, what happens? The ball is getting picked from the defender on the opposite side of the field, or they're running into threats that are, getting the receiver killed, right? Because there's just, hey, you told me to run straight and then across the football
Right.
field, right? In our system, we call things like we don't even use the terminology dig because I know what's going to happen. We'll call it a hunt. You're hunting space. This is your general landmark, right? If we need for whatever is supporting the concept, we'll tell them how to release. But a lot of times we'll release path of the least resistance, restack your landmark, and then you're finding a void in this general space. And then what we try to teach them is the complementary routes that are then going to affect the pieces around them. So it is, again, it's a map of here's where we got to get to, right? And you look at an atlas or you look at GPS, there's multiple different ways to get to that destination. And each of them offer their own unique positives, pros and cons, and all that. But at the end of the day, like I think even Gruden finally said it, we say it to our guys all the time, there are not whiteboard routes. Like we don't run, when it's drawn on there, like I'll draw them with wiggles, you know what I mean? I'll draw them with lines showing like, hey, you're going to have to create a release and you need to, regain some separation to yank open the void that we're trying to attack. And then if you get a high level push, or a hole dropper, sit your butt down, right? If you're getting an over push by the defense, roll it over top of them. But on any end breaker, you know what I mean? We tell them it's not the guy over top of you that's the problem. Like your stem has to be him. The next guy inside of you is the issue, whether that's for bodily harm or ball control, right? Ball security.
Right.
Like you have to have an awareness up to where you're going. So that's, to me, a lot of what we try to teach is the why, like what we are doing, why we are doing it, and how in the game of football defenses are going to try to, distract or disturb what we're trying to do and then provide answers on it. So that's it. I just thought that was unique because we have, especially here, first time, I think I called a slant one time because I wanted him to run 3 steps and in. And then we have somebody running through an open window into a closed window to the backside will. And I'm like, never again. Nobody in this program, don't call it a slant. It's not a slant route, right? It is, it's more of this is what we're trying to accomplish, but don't guard yourself. Like I think there's too much of that in football right now where pass schemes guard themselves by the way that they're presented and they're taught because there's not enough feel to what we're trying to accomplish at the end of the day.
One of the best things I've heard you say, and it's really unique in the way you say it, is layering base concepts with formation distortion. I think that should be put up on a plaque somewhere in your office, I think. Tell me a little bit about that. What does that look like practically for you on game day? And is that, kind of a terminology you've kind of molded over to the years, or what does that really look like?
Yeah, I think it came about the more because I think just like any young play caller, I think we ran good stuff when I first started, but it was a collection of plays. It wasn't a system. And the further I got into it, the more I became obsessed with having concepts that answered multiple problems before they arise, and then educating our players on how to arrive at those solutions. And layering to me is, you watch any of the greats, Sark and McVay and Shanahan and Ben Johnson. You watch any of those guys, they're playing off of their base concepts all the time. And to me, what that is it gives us, one of my phrases is less plays, more ways. We're not going to run a bunch of concepts in this system for, a lot of different reasons, but we're going to run a concept that has multiple answers, right? That can be run a multitude of ways with a lot of different people. And then there are always checks and balances in the old, my dad was a wing T coach, right? It is if this, then that type of solution. So when we run a base concept, however we decide to run it, there's always another layer to it. So if a defense responds in a certain way, we already have an automatic response within the call or our secondary call that's going to come up to it. And I think that simplifies a lot of call sheet stuff. I mean, a whole nother podcast is like, okay, what's your call sheet look like? Well, a call sheet to me is situational and reminders, right? I just make a menu. This is the menu of concepts, right? And I understand how they solve different problems. So, with a quick buzzword after a play is how do they match the route, right? Where'd the fitter come from? Okay, are they field spin, boundary spin? Okay, as soon as you know that, boom, this concept's answers like that. Or I can tell based on the call, this is the stimuli that we're receiving from the defense. The ball should be going there. And so honestly, like formation distortion came from like I want to run our core concepts, but I want to have something. To me, distortion is something on top of the play that makes a defense have to react pre-snap. So that could be a bunch, that could be a stack, that could be formation to boundary, empty, whatever it is that's going to minimize the call that we can get from the defense, simplify the look for our players, and then within that concept, the way it's been taught, they can exploit the leverage or the reaction that the defense provides. And ultimately what happens is you don't really have to have that many concepts. You just have to have a multitude of ways to run them. And so I think I spend a lot of my time on how many ways can we run these plays. Like I spend all summer, I watch, a lot of different teams. Okay, I know this concept's what we want to do. How many ways can we apply it? All right. What are the stressors that will occur? What are things that defenses will do to try to restrict the space we're trying to exploit? And once that space becomes restricted, there's always a play off of a play, right? And so I just think if you watch the greats, there's plays off of plays off of plays, and that to me what are layers. And you could take inside split zone with a basic RPO, and you can build an entire series off of that play that extends all the way to we're throwing the ball and we're running through the back of the end zone because the defense reacted in a certain manner. And I think that all comes from that distortion piece. Like how do we distort them into giving us the most standardized look that we can get, right? And then exploiting them based on their reaction.
One of my favorite play callers to study is definitely Andy Reid, and particularly his openers.
Yep.
Because if you watch somebody's openers, or particularly his, it might look a little strange at times because he is truly a heavyweight boxer, like feeling out punches early. Do you feel the same way with your openers? You really have, a few you want to get to gather that information.
Yep.
And especially now, kind of a side question on that with, the new technology that we're allowed to have within, the college football level. Do you utilize that a lot, or are there just kind of little things that you're looking for? And how do you kind of see your openers, week to week?
Yeah. What I call it is I tell our kids, we're going to call basic actions to chum the bait. We want to chum it out there. And what we're looking for is how does the defense react to it, right? What I try to look at is, there's only so many, plays in football, right? It's all about the ways that you run the plays. And so what we want to do is early, we want to chum the bait. We're going to go with stuff we believe in. But what we're trying to discern is what type of reaction will the defense provide to that? And then once we see that, we have, kind of those responses to that reaction that we're going to try to get to. So, that's what I always, try to tell them is like, let's get this internal information and then reapply it in a way that's going to allow us to exploit basically the space. Because, no matter what a defense does, there's space on the field that's being voided. And this offense is all about exploit the space that is available to us. And that could be run, pass, lateral, intermediate, deep, doesn't matter, right? You're working all layers of the field. And I think so this year will be the first year I get to use, just based on where I've been and the timing, get to use, technology on the sideline. I'm pretty excited about it. Obviously it gives defensive play callers their own advantages, but, really to me, there are simple keys that we're looking for within our base concepts that once we see it, it elicits the next response. And sometimes that's, hey, we need to, set the route up outside to bring it inside. Sometimes that's, okay, they want to be aggressive. We're going to fight fire with fire and attack them vertically. Whatever that may be, That's how I go about, in most normal down and distance situations. It is a call and response type of process that we're operating with. And usually I give my coaches a basic script. When we dole out our most basic concept, I want to know, where's the extra hack coming from? What's the coverage behind it? Okay, as soon as I know that, we have something in our menu that can exploit that space, right? And then once we know we've done that once or twice, there's going to be a follow-up reaction that's now probably going to allow us to exploit vertical space over top of it that all looks, feels, and smells like the original play. And to me, that's layers. It's just layers on layers on layers, on top of us having the ability to post snap to side on almost every play, which gives it its own unique, strategy and ability to beat different reactions.
When you're kind of going through your game plan process, what does that look like? Sunday to Saturday. Is the first thing you're doing turning on, the full game? Are you watching it full game from the previous opponent? Are you just turning on formations? What's kind of your process usually look like?
Yeah, basic outline is I'll watch two games relatively straight through. I want to see how the game unfolds. I kind of want to get a feel for the play caller that we're going against, just kind of how they react to different scenarios in the game. I think context is really critical to understand before you dive into the cut ups. But I'll do that, and I'll do that kind of do that all on my own, right? And it's just kind of an informal gathering of, this is the type of game that this person just is preferring to play. And you're getting the in-game feel of, first quarter, second quarter, third downs early in the game, third downs later in the game. The opposition's up 10 or they're down 10. So that's the first thing I like to do, just to kind of gain an overall feel. And then I'm straight into cut ups by formation. And the beautiful thing about this system was we're not like designing plays in the game plan process. We're understanding how defenses want to fit, how defenses want to match routes. And then we're understanding that our concepts are going to react against this type of a fit or a presence in this general manner. And then, then it's, again, okay, this is their initial fit to it. We're probably going to have the ability to have success in this way. When we do this 1, 2, 3 times, they're going to have to react, and it's trying to uncover what's that next reaction. So then that way we have that, kind of that full strike capability of, okay, once we've hit the spot a couple times, they're going to have to adjust how they do it, understanding what that adjustment is, and then here comes a strike. So it's full game, it's cut ups, and then it's situational. And that's how I kind of like to work through the course of a game. And really, most of what we're doing is, again, understanding the fits in the match that we're going to get in the box and in the perimeter. And then how can we implement something into our game plan through distortion that allows us, from the formational standpoint, gives us an advantage, but we also know the concept gives us an advantage. So now we're layering things that we believe stress a defense on top of each other. And the more ways that we can do that, now we have a unique game plan for this opponent, but it's still all the same stuff that we're running. And now they have to react to us instead of us reacting to them.
Is there, a specific example, throughout a week of prep where you've really had to kind of turn, the lens to yourself and think, okay, we really got to figure out, our self scouting. We got to really dive into what we're doing. During the course of a season, it's really hard to do that at times because you're so concerned with the opponent. Is there a specific example that you could, share of, when self scouting, shifted kind of your game plan during the season?
Yeah. I think a lot of it will come from, we believe very confidently that the ways that we teach our base concepts, like our day one install, we believe should be able to win us multiple football games at the beginning of a season, right? And I think the biggest adjustments we've made in the course of a season by understanding ourselves is, what do teams see in us when we present a particular picture? And so you could take any picture, a 3-by-1, 11 personnel off ball tight end. Okay, that's a pretty base formation for us, or a 3-by-2 empty set. And what we always try to do, especially once we can start to smell that teams have their reaction on it, is how can we invert their line of thinking and present something that they believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, this is what Corrill's going to do. This is what he's going to do right here, and have something, like I'm tapping my feet right now, like have something that plays off of that, right? That is all about, what do you see in us? So even like this spring, like our head coach, he's the DC here. He's legit number 3 defense in the country last year. About halfway through, we just said, hey, can you give us a couple examples of like what you see? And he gave us, hey, we think this is a tendency, this is a tendency, this is a tendency. And one of them was a particular motion. So it's like, all right, we went into our meeting and we're like, we're not running this play off of this motion. We're going to motion to the backside of this concept, or we're going to get to this particular deal that we're running with this motion in 3 different ways, but we're not going to run it off of this motion. And then we're going to use that motion to run 2 different things. So again, we're kind of throwing it out there for them, like here comes this. This is the way they see this concept, and then we're going to use it to our advantage. So whether that means they're directed, like the gravity of the defense is getting directed to that motion, perfect. What type of reaction is that, and then what spot on the field does it allow us to then exploit in a different manner? So a lot of it's like, we pride ourselves in quick game. Okay, once we know we have their attention in quick game, and you've got to use that alley player to defend us, we're then going to use that in the run game to our advantage, because now we're creating outward gravity from this alley fit player that's got to be their 6th or 7th hat, and all of a sudden now we're chumming it out to where here it comes. They're buzzing out. It's lightening that gap, or that dual player, and exploiting them in different ways. So, there's a lot of different manners in which that kind of presents itself. But I think being honest with yourself of what those tendencies are, and then really understanding, okay, that is a tendency. What are teams doing in preparation for that? Understanding what that reaction is. Okay, what's something else off of that we can then present to them that just changes the line of thinking. And an easy one is like double moves off RPOs, right? Mm-hmm. Like I heard Gundy say it on a clinic like 3 summers ago, and it's like, yep, we're going to throw glance, and then as soon as they drive through our inside shoulder, we're running glance and go. So those are some things that we'll do like preemptively to make it look, smell, feel like, and just give them the just a slight bit of doubt that, man, this might get thrown over top of my head. And this looks like something I need to be driving on or fitting in a certain way. And all of a sudden, whether you complete it or not, oh my goodness, this like ride the mesh, pop the feet and bang it is just turned into ride the mesh, pop the feet. He just reset. This guy just went over top of me and the ball's getting thrown 40 yards down the field. Obviously, if you hit it, that's awesome. But now we're slowing that reaction to something that they're very, very confident is going to occur. And again, we're not going to hide it. Yeah, we are going to run that play. But I just want them to know that I know that this is how you want to react to it.
Right. One of the coolest things that I'm so glad that Gruden decided to do this again was his QB draft class. That I feel like coordinators and offensive people around the country ate that up all draft season long. And one of the things that he was talking to, I think it was Will Howard, about was he gave him a manila folder, and he said, for the rest of your career, you put in, wherever you get drafted, if you're playing against Todd Bowles, every note that you take goes in this manila folder. Yep. Do you ever kind of take a similar approach to defensive coordinators? Because, you've coached in different leagues, you've coached at different levels, but you never know when you're going to see that DC again. Do you kind of have a similar process, or kind of how do you manage, going against different DCs throughout the course of your career, really?
Yeah, there's certain guys that have certainly done that to me and have forced my progression. Nick Davis, he's a head coach out in Kansas. At Ottawa, he was a DC at Rose-Hulman when we were at Mount St. Joe, and he was one of the guys that I had the least amount of success against, and he really basically created his own, for lack of a better term, manila folder for me to study and implement in the offseason. And what I do is, I think that's a great idea against specific coordinators. What I do is obviously each coordinator is going to have their own flair, but it's more of like the structures that they want to present. So that way, hey, where have we seen this picture before? So in the course of a season, okay, this team is a middle field open type of team. All right, we're going to have kind of a working document of what our game plan is against this. And I think even like on one of the podcasts Lane Kiffin was on is like he's got Tampa 2 beaters because he grew up with one of the creator of the Tampa 2, and he's got those embedded in his head. That's kind of the way I've always looked at it, is structurally and aggressive level. Like the aggression level and the structure is really what I think about when being tasked with, okay, here's a defense on the screen. No defense is going to play the same, but it's having that just that working document in your head of like, okay, in week 2, we saw a similar picture. These are the things that we wanted to do. This is what actually worked against it. This is what we didn't have as much success with. And then trying to think of, okay, they've also seen the same film on us. This is what they're probably thinking they need to do, and using that information against them. So it's not necessarily, there are some DCs that, I've had to, almost rework things because I've gone against, but it's a lot of times like the structure and then just their overall aggression level that they operate with that I try to document.
Yeah. I think coordinators, all the coordinators I've been around, they've been creative individuals and they're artists in a way. Is there a certain thing or something that you do that, that's non-football related that you do to stay creative, whether that's music or writing or film or anything like that?
Yeah. So I think I'm probably a prime example of that. Like I'm an English major. I like analysis. I love writing. I've had different mediums that I've used throughout the years to like kind of get that that creative element out. I'll when we do a game plan, I'll write it in prose almost, like it's like a article. And you used to see the kids are like, really, coach? I'm like, that's how my brain thinks. But no, I'm huge into music, and one of my better friends is a touring musician, and I love the way that they create. It's very genuine. They stay very true to themselves. They're always applying experiences into what they're doing, and so I really do try to look at, I listen to music. I have a top 97 movies deal on my MBD app, and it's always analysis. It's analysis
Yeah.
of like, why did the director choose to make this decision? And I'll listen to on my Instagram feed, I'll hear movie directors talking about their creation process, or I'll watch the behind the scenes of a musician creating, and try to capture how did they create that element, you know what I mean? And what
Mm-hmm.
was behind it. And there's obviously a lot of different things, but I like that. That's what I like to hear, is like, how did that come to fruition? Like, where did that idea come from? Like, that's what I would always at, like, even like smart, um, football coaches. It's like, how did you come up with that idea? Like,
Mm-hmm.
where did it stem from? And there's all these different reasons behind it, but that's what I really enjoy, is whether it's a movie or music, I'll kind of like do my own pseudo reviews, or like, well, this is how this song, I have like 50 different playlists on my Apple Music of like each different like mood or time of the year. And it's just all like meticulously curated to like that feeling. And
Hmm.
like, I don't know, it can just put me
I
in a
love that.
different headspace. So it's pretty like, it's probably OCD for sure. Like, it's very obsessive, but like, that's just how my brain thinks, is I want to understand, like, how did that atmosphere, or that, how did that idea start? Like, what was the seed that started that, and how did you bring it to life?
Yeah.
Um,
That
that's
question kind of came from, so Coach Matheson, who we both know and appreciate, big runner, runs, I mean, unbelievable amount. And he would text us on his runs during a week of prep, and he'd be like, "You like this?" And I'm like, "Dude, aren't you like 10 miles away, right? It's like, oh yeah, I thought this would be good. And he's the same way, like, maybe a little OCD, maybe a little, screw loose here and there, but that's just, I think that's such a, a unique way of going about things. One thing that I've really appreciated from you is how active you are on social media. And I think, you share clips, you share your thoughts, you engage with other coaches, you share your insights. Why has that, been a big part of who you are, and why has that been important to you as a coach?
Yeah, I think it was. I heard, because you try to think about it, like my number one thing with that is I don't want it to ever be just only self-serving. I mean, I always think about that as like, I wonder what people who don't know me think about like this content or whatever. And
Yeah.
and a lot of it is I can place in time people that took the time to respond to me, whether it's social media or in person, or provide insight in a way that has helped me grow as a coach. And I always love the authentic, interactions. And so to me, whether you like it or you hate it, it's hopefully you can understand and have an idea for who I am from a football stance, and I kind of blend. Obviously, I believe in the artistic creation of it, of who I am before you ever meet me. But I always think about just those people that give back and apply their knowledge. I mean, I can tell you, like with our entire system, like I know again, like the creative element, like where that idea stemmed from, and I can credit who it is that, whether they directly gave it to me or indirectly. We ran a the super counter quarterback spinner in a playoff game, and I literally got it off of Dan Casey's Instagram. Like he
Yeah.
literally
That did
showed.
that dude's responsible for a lot of,
Yeah, I mean, and
indirect
he has
content
no
like that.
idea who I am, but it's like, no, that's literally where we got it from. So I also think that, in circumstances where, I think I took a leap of faith in the job previous to this, but I also knew that we were probably going to be in someone else's creative space, is making sure that, the way that I view the game, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, was appropriately presented. And, you never know who's getting that information. And, I think there's a lot of different ways to think of the game. I think a lot of people would probably view the way that we operate, from an offensive standpoint. Just if you saw our day to day, it's different, right? But what I want guys to know is, like, the only limitations are imagination, right? You can be creative in this game. Like a lot of people on the outside say, oh, it's a caveman sport. It's like, this is a thinking man's game. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
want other coaches, young, old, high school, college, doesn't matter, to know that, like, that's what gets rewarded. Like the guys that make it and have some of the most desirable products, they take chances, they're creative, they think of the game in their own unique ways, right? And that's the biggest thing to me, is just demonstrating, like, that's how we do it. You know what I mean? It's not by the book. And we study all the same film, but there's more to it than just the X and the O and that line that you draw, and this is how we block this. There is a creative element to this that, to me, my dad told me, like, there's only so many plays in football.
Hmm.
It's not the plays you run, it's the ways you run the plays, right? And that's what's ever changing in football. It's not the concepts. It's still all the same concepts that's ever been there. There's maybe a couple unique whatever past concepts today, but, like, it's all the same stuff, right?
Right.
That's what I want people to, is like, if they can get inspired, because I've read tweets and listened to clinics and watched a 30-second thing on Twitter and be like, whoa, I've never thought of it like that. Can we apply that mentality to it? And it's helped us score points. It's helped
Yeah.
us win football games. And so hopefully somewhere in there, I try not to make it self-serving to me, but I like interacting. I like communicating. Heck, I think, we obviously cross paths in real life, but, like, social media is how this whole thing came
Absolutely.
to fruition, right? And now you meet someone else that's passionate about this game. Like, that's what makes this whole thing exciting.
I think that's the beautiful thing about our game and the profession of coaching is it it is really all like the same stuff.
Yep.
Like we're all doing the same stuff, and I think the cool thing is figuring out how that guy skins a cat, how that guy does things, and
Yep.
and I love that way of thinking. Is being kind of like an energy giver versus, you know, gatekeeping or whatever the case is. And it's like,
Mhm.
even if you post all these plays, whatever the case is, it's like Coach Matheson, keep bringing him up, but he put all the stuff on, the Throw Deep Publishing. You think that like he's gonna miss a step because he put no,
No.
like, but he made somebody better out there.
Yes.
Somebody made, whether that was, whoever, but
Mhm.
within that, there's a lot of stuff that's coming in and out. There's a lot of concepts that get thrown all over the place. How do you kind of decide what's your filter when it comes to, all right, I like this play. But when do you decide we're actually going to run this? We're actually going to try testing this and deciding if it fits or not.
Yeah, I have a working, just like my Apple Music plays. I got a working document, if you will, on from Twitter, from Instagram. Okay, how many ideas can we collect? And usually, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to solve a problem that I have been presented with, whether that's the previous season or for like us. Okay, here's some situations, specific situations that I'm always saving red zone cut-ups, right? If someone has a red zone concept, whether it's the most basic, double in arrow, to the most creative ones, we're always saving that because you can always, in that particular part of the field, like that's where I prefer designers to be applied. But I'm always saving and collecting. And then the first thing is, can it solve a problem? Or if I see something that is building off of a base concept that is in our lexicon already, that's something that's really going to draw my attention. And then usually you're always trying to, if you see a concept come up multiple times and usually from multiple different teams are running it, well, there's probably a reason why that's happening. And it's usually, okay, from our side of the football, a defensive trend is presenting that you need this type of concept. And you're seeing it multiple ways. So then I'll take a deep dive into it. And then what I'll do is I'll kind of save those and start asking around, like, hey, are you running this type of concept? If so, why? What's the return on investment that you can expect from this? And is it something that you would suggest, someone that does not have that in already is implementing? And so it's kind of, that's the tier process. It goes through those type of deals, but I'm saving everything. You know what I mean? I got it all in there. And I'm telling you, those things online that I've saved, I mean, they show up all throughout the year, and I can usually point back to, I remember what the post was when I saved it, and then we'll come back and we'll study these next couple of weeks on what we did in the spring. Okay, how can we make it better? And it usually is backed up by what other people are doing or what we've seen presented online. So
Right.
there's a multiple ways to do it. You can't run everything. I've definitely learned that, but I just like seeing how people are doing, Coach Matheson, like, we run a completely different system than him, but he and I sat in that office at St. Thomas for 5 hours one night and literally just talking philosophy, theory. Hey, is this concept? This is why we do it. This is the reaction to it. This is how I call plays. This is, he's in the booth. I'm on the field. He's charting. I barely have a call sheet. Like, it's just trying to extract, because he's that's why I love that guy. He's a creative individual and he's hyper intelligent. And I just want to know, like, some of the stuff he tells me, I'm like, dude, that's way over my head.
Seriously, I don't even get it at times. The way he sees like run fits, it's almost
Unbelievable.
like a science that hasn't been discovered yet, is how I like to describe it. I'm like, even our head coach, we talk about it. We're like, I don't truly get what he's talking about. Like, but he sees it, right? He sees it. It's his way. Whatever it is, it's his way.
He's artificial intelligence, dude.
He is.
He's
He's Chat
a
GPT on the field.
stud.
Yeah. But coach, before we get you out of here, have some quick hits for you. Just, you can expand on it as long or as little as you'd like, but just kind of quick hits with you here. All right, first one, pregame meal go to. What is it?
Yeah. So I asked my wife and she smiled because it's like, I almost fast before a game. I'll drink an energy drink, a white gummy bear rain,
There
like
we
right
go.
on the field. And
Love
like,
that.
got the spark, but I'm a light, I'll splurge after the game, but I'm almost fasting and I don't know what it is, if it's some type of, but it's like, I want to feel it all and I want to be light and lean and I'll eat in the morning I'll eat a protein bar or something. But for whatever reason on game days, it's like I'm just like as lean as I can be, and I'll use that caffeine to kind of stimulate the
There we
brain, and
go.
hopefully the creative measures take over from
There
there.
we go. Favorite play call when you need 2 yards?
Oh, I love this one. I mean, the philosophy is get it to the best guy, right? If I'm calling it for Josh Taylor, who is our quarterback at Mount St. Joe, we're running quarterback ISO. If it was the previous regime, we're going to run some type of slot option concept to a highly savvy guy that can create space for himself. At this scenario, we got all American back, so it could be whatever his favorite run concept is. That's something I like to do is I'll ask our players on Thursdays. We've got our call sheet all built for Saturday, and I'll go around the room from starting quarterback to the 7th, 8th receiver. Hey, it's 3rd and 5. We're coming to you. What do you want? And we'll get that information from all these kids, and that helps us build that third down call sheet. So it's really dependent on the kid.
Also gives those guys confidence. It's like,
yeah,
hey, this is that coach, trust me here. You know what I mean? It's
no
one
doubt.
of those things.
Yep.
Best football movie?
Friday Night Lights.
It's a great answer.
I cry every time.
Show or do you feel the same way about the show or?
I like the show. It's okay. I like the movie. My dad gave me that book when I was in 4th grade. I read the real book. That movie, I don't know. It does something to me. I mean, the soundtrack, like when we're playing,
good.
the soundtrack
makes you feel like you're in high school football all over again.
Every single time, explosions in the sky, man. That hits.
Used to listen to that song while I was working out.
No doubt.
Okay, I am. State title's coming, right?
Yes.
Song that gets you in the zone. Is it the same answer? Or
no? You got to check this one out because I love this. I'm a music guy. I'm off the beaten path with music, but you need to check this one out. It is the artist is Almost Monday, right? And the song is you just put me on the spot. You have to clip this. It is Can't Slow Down. Almost Monday. It is I like music that like a beach vibe. It's like it's good. It's like I like the beach vibe. Like that's what I go to before a game. I listen to like crazy heavy metal when I lift, but I listen to I go to a happy place before I call a game. Check that one. I'll make you smile.
Yeah,
next time it's sunny out, put it on in your car.
All right. Football phrase that secretly drives you nuts.
It's twofold. And it's nuanced, but it's defense wins championships and you got to establish the run. Obviously, both things are present, but to me, you got to have all 3 phases, right? There's still a fact in football that if you outscore the opponent, you're going to win, right? Mm-hmm. And establishing physicality, I can get behind that, but I don't like running into walled fortresses. I don't like throwing into umbrella coverage, right? I think you got to establish physicality in the game, and then you're playing off of what a defense does. You want to look at the Eagles. You want an elite defense, but that offense was pretty darn good too, right? 3 phases win championships, and to me, on offense, it is exploit the space that is being voided based on the defense's approach. Like that's what it is. Got to have a physicality. Got to be physical, but those 2 things, they just drive me nuts.
I love that. Offensive guys love that. Last question here: if you could give a piece of advice to a young player looking to get into coaching, what would it be?
Stay true to yourself. You got to learn, you got to listen, you got to apply. You got to stay in the fight, right? This game's hard, especially if you're starting on the lower end of it. Like it takes a while to build to it, but that's going to be any industry that you get into. But staying true to yourself, I think it took me a couple years of doing it. We've already mentioned Coach Matheson, who is extremely true to himself. That's a lot of what we talked about. I mean, I've been in situations that allow me to fully deliver on who I am in places that restrict that mentality. And, I think at the end of the day, you got to play sound football. You got to do a lot of the things, but there's no, I don't like self-imposed restrictions. You got to have 7 people on the football. You can't have someone moving forward. But like after that, allow yourself to see the game the way that you vision it, right? And that to me is what creates special coaches and people that continue to progress this game going forward. But a lot of people will try to shoot down, people that think or see the game differently. but I've been told Craig Stutzman at San Jose State, he told me last year, like, don't stop being yourself, right? There's times in this game, in this profession, that you'll doubt yourself. He said, do not stop being yourself. And I've heard that multiple times, but that to me is what I would tell young guys.
Thank you for listening to the Left Hash Call. For more episodes, you can go to Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts. And be sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, or Twitter, and even Facebook if you're into that. And I would really appreciate you subscribing, following, or just continue to listen. We'll see you next time. Peace.